If you've ever jumped into a ride at 110% and then spent the last third of that ride just surviving, well, this video is for you. We're covering how to actually pace a longer ride so you finish strong instead of finishing wrecked. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about why pacing goes wrong in the first place, because it's almost always one of these two things. Problem one would be starting way too hard, way too fast. You're fresh, your legs feel great, and the first climb or interval feels really easy, so you push. But feels easy in the first 10 minutes and feels easy in minute 60 are two completely different things. That early effort borrows energy from later in the ride, and eventually the bill comes due. And that leads us into problem two, having no plan at all. If you don't have a target for power, heart rate, or even just perceived effort, you're pacing by vibes, and vibes are unreliable, especially once fatigue starts clouding your judgment. The fix for both of these is the same. Decide your effort before you start, not while you're in it. So that leads us to tip number one. Set a target zone before the ride starts. For longer rides, you want to be riding at an effort you could sustain for way longer than the ride actually is. That's your buffer. A good rule of thumb would be to aim for a power or heart rate zone that feels like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 for the majority of the ride, not an 8. Save those 8s for the intervals. If you train with power, this usually means riding at or below the top of your endurance zone for the bulk of the ride. If you don't have a power meter, use conversational effort as your gauge. You should be able to speak in short sentences without gasping for most of the ride. Write your target number down or set it as a target in your watch or your app before you start. Once you're 20 minutes in and your legs feel good, that number will keep you honest. So then tip number two would be to stop thinking about the ride as one long block. Break it into segments. A 1-hour ride feels intimidating, but 4 15-minute segments kind of feels completely manageable. This isn't just a mental trick. It's actually helping you regulate effort because you're checking in with yourself more often instead of just riding until you explode. So let's try this structure. First quarter, be deliberately conservative. This is where most pacing mistakes happen in the first place, so intentionally hold back here. The middle half, this is your steady state zone. Settle into your target and lock it in. And the final quarter of the ride, this is where you're allowed to dig in a little more because you've banked the energy to do it. If you've got anything left in the tank for the last 10-ish minutes or so, that is your sign the early pacing has worked. And then tip number 3, pacing isn't just about effort, it's about fuel too. A huge number of pacing failures are actually fueling failures. You feel strong, so you skip a fueling window, and 40 minutes later, your legs just stop responding the way you want. That's not a pacing mistake in the moment. It's one you made earlier. So for anything over 60 to 90 minutes, set a reoccurring reminder to drink every 15 to 20 minutes, not just when you feel thirsty. Start taking in carbs early. Waiting until you feel depleted means you've already gotten behind. If it's a long, hard effort, sip in fuel before the hardest section, not during it. Treat fueling like part of your pacing plan and not just an afterthought. So let's recap. Pacing a longer ride comes down to 3 things. Set your target effort before you start, so you're not guessing halfway through. Break the ride into chunks and be deliberately conservative early on. And fuel and hydrate on schedule, not when you already feel the effects of not doing it. Nail these 3 things and you'll finish your long rides feeling like you had one more gear left, instead of just surviving to the cooldown. If this was helpful, let me know in the comments what your longest ride distance or duration is right now, and I'll factor that into a future video. See you in the next one.